sprawling desert of thorns, one man begins a personal odyssey. For John Marshall, a journey into the past. Marshall searches for the people he once lived with as a teenage boy. Leaving the last of the Bantu villages, he sets out into the southern African wasteland, which he first saw more than 20 years before. The Kalahari he knew supported hardy species of wildlife and a unique people. In small bands, they still existed as they always had, as early man once did, gathering wild foods and hunting. They called themselves Yusi, the people. The European settlers called them Bushmen. Do these people still pursue their ancient way of life in freedom in the Kalahari? In the 300 years of its colorful history, Harvard University, the oldest in America, has become a symbol of man's search to understand the world and himself. A few short blocks from Harvard, in an antiquated factory building, is another institution, unpretentious and unconventional, but also dedicated to understanding man. The Center for Documentary Educational Resources. Founded by John Marshall, a filmmaker, anthropologist, and his associates, the center produces in-depth studies of different cultures and ways of life. Through these films, anthropologists and students are able to compare other cultures with our own.
How many Bushmen languages are there?
Oh, no one really knows. There are 6, 7, I don't know.
His most important study is of the Kalahari Bushmen, 500,000 feet of film, dating back more than 20 years.
The people I lived with in the western Kalahari called themselves Krong, the name of the Click language they spoke. They lived in a place called Wantley, in small bands of related families, perhaps 15 to 40 men, women, and children. They were gatherers. Women gathered more than 100 different kinds of wild roots, nuts, and berries, providing for their families. Women sustained their families. Men hunted for the whole band. The best hunter I ever knew was Puma, the leader of his people.
One thing about the Kung people is that they were probably one of the last hunting-gathering peoples that had maintained their independence.
When I was 17, Puma taught me what hunting meant. When we saw giraffes one winter morning, Puma knew how ambitious it was to hunt them. His kinsman, Kao, was non-committal, but the younger men were eager. So Puma sent Crooked Tui down on an angle to intercept the giraffes. Tui's arrow struck the last giraffe, a female, in the thigh. The older men knew they would be tracking such a strong creature for days, but Tui raced vainly after the giraffe. out on the plain, we found the shaft of his arrow. The points, coated with poison, are detachable. Blood near the tip meant the point was deep in the giraffe. All afternoon, the hunters trailed the herd, learning the tracks of the wounded giraffe until they could recognize them at a glance. The hunters sat near their fires, ready for the night. They did not mention the giraffe, for to speak of her would give her strength. They waited and let their poison work. In the morning, the men found where the giraffes had rested during the night. Carl wondered if the wounded giraffe had already left the herd. At our feet, a beetle rolled a ball of dung across the trampled ground. Carl examined the dung and detected signs of poison. As the winter sun rose, the men could discover no pattern of movement among the giraffes. Their tracks were mingled and confused. 3 had left the herd. Toma thought the wounded one was with them. And he was right. The wounded giraffe left her companions and ran alone, bunched with pain. The hunters knew the poison was in her brain, the infection mortal. The next day, we used ostrich eggs to drink at Daucha, one of the few permanent water holes in the western Kalahari. We drank deeply, because to the west there was no water. The young men expected to find the giraffe lying dead in the morning, but Toma knew her strength, and by now he knew her mind. She had been circling, and Toma guessed we could intercept her. We found her in the early afternoon. She could or would go no further. Their first attempt failed. They spent their spears and energies on her, and still she stood. By now, if the hunters were tired, it made no difference. She was already dead. Toma made the first division of the meat. Each hunter received his share and his wife's family's share. And while we shared the liver, the hunter's portion, I realized that beyond satisfying hunger, hunting confirmed kinship ties. The kill was distributed among all the people, drawing them together. Those who came to carry the meat home each received a share for their families. Kin gave to kin until everyone living together, some 40 people, were cooking and eating the giraffe. Toma told the story of the hunt, further binding the people together in common experience.
It has been 15 years since John Marshall has seen the people whose way of life he shared, and Toma, who gave him his Bushman name. He too is Toma. Now for the National Geographic Society, he will return to the Kalahari. John Marshall returns again to the Kalahari. With him is Ladimo, a Bantu interpreter and close friend. 2 support vehicles carry food, fuel, and water as the tiny caravan heads into the African wasteland of some 600,000 square miles. For days they move westward across the nation of Botswana toward the border of Southwest Africa. Once men and animals moved freely across an unmarked boundary. Now, stretched between the free black nation of Botswana and Southwest Africa is a 10-foot-high fence put up by the Southwest African administration. Just over the fence is a government reservation set aside for Kung people. Here, John Marshall cannot enter.
Near the border, we had picked up 2 acquaintances, Kung Bushmen I had known in 1957. They would carry a message some 30 miles into the region called Mwantlay. I said, talk to no one until you see Toma and tell him I'm here. He'd know if the government would really let people come. Only the Kung are free to cross the border between Botswana and the reservation where they are restricted in Southwest Africa. For 15 years, I had been denied permission to return to Mwantlay.
It was 1951 when he first came to Nainai at the age of 17 with his family. The Marshalls would be recognized among anthropologists for their work in recording the vanishing Bushman culture. John for his films, his sister Elizabeth for a best-selling book, The Harmless People. 7 expeditions were organized by his father, Lawrence. Most respected for scientific work would be Lorna Marshall, John's mother.
How does it do?
John Marshall and his party make camp a quarter of a mile from the fence.
Is he living?
Yes, they said he's alive. He's still living. They said he's at Chungkwe.
At Chungkwe. I wonder if he'll come.
For 3 days, they wait for the people of Nainai. John Marshall had hoped that perhaps a few would make the long trek. Instead, there are nearly 50 men, women, and children. There are those who knew the Marshalls, and those too young to remember, but who have heard the story. They had come 30 miles through the Kalahari to see a friend. Leading the people as he has for nearly 2 decades, as he once led the hunters, is a man named Toma.
Except for the children, I knew them all. Toma, who had given me his name. Gal, the musician. People who had grown so. I wanted to show people some of the movies I had made. We remembered the happy times, the good rains that fell my last year in Wantley. To people who live on wild foods, the rainy season, from October to early March, is the time when life starts again. It's the happiest time of all. Goma remembered how even after the rains were over, there were clear, shallow ponds in the desert where he bathed. Somehow, the Kong always see humor in life, like the day the women and children went berry picking and stirred up a nest of hornets. I especially wanted to see Ngai. I had begun a film study of her when she was 6 and filmed her last at 13. I remembered a mischievous and vital child and found a beautiful, mature young woman. The people could stay only 4 days. We discussed not the past, but the new problems of life on the reservation. Kao said Koma had received 1 cow from the government, but not the bull. He concluded progress would be slow. Their concern was with the future. I wondered how long their past would remain in living memory. Before he returned to the reservation at Wantley, Koma and I visited the small, strange hills of Tsodillo, which Koma had never seen. There, in painting, are images reaching back through centuries. The hands of the people. And the game. Theories say such handprints are signatures or magic signs. Koma said the hands and creature were one painting, the story of a hunt. The hunter saw an eland, and his hands showed how he crept close. Try the giraffe, Koma said. Koma told me that they painted the giraffe, showing how to stalk it, just like we did in Wantley when I was a boy. And he said they were Jusi, the people, and they lived out there long, long ago. There were so many Bushman peoples once, living throughout all of southern Africa. 18 years ago, I lived with one small band who spoke a different language than Koma's people. They'd had so little except great knowledge of their environment. A melon became its own bowl. A digging stick became a pestle, and then a spoon. The oldest member of the band was a composer named Uhone. His songs celebrated day-to-day events in the gathering hunting life. Ukhone's culture was intangible. Knowledge, traditions, values. His compositions were its living record, easily swept away.
Searching for a trace of Ukhone's people, John Marshall moves along the desert's edge, from one marginal ranch to the next. On farms surrounding waterholes that once were theirs, more than 70% of the bushmen have sought work, most eking out a tenuous existence.
Yes, why did he come to the farms anyway if he doesn't get any work?
Marshall has found Gayamakwe, the son of old Ukhone, the musician.
He told me, I left the desert long ago because of thirst. My father is dead, my people scattered. I am here because there is nowhere else to go. I don't remember my father's music. Why should I?
Though Gayamakwe's people are gone, Marshall has learned that other bushmen are still living in the very heart of the Kalahari. After 120 miles, he reaches the place called Khade, where the Botswana government has sunk a well, and where he has heard that people he once knew are raising livestock. But expectation turns to disappointment. The village is deserted.
He's dead? Well, with this broken, that's why they left. That's for sure.
The pump has been broken for a long time, many months. With new parts, it can be fixed. But what has become of the people and their animals?
There's no water.
All have disappeared into the desert at the very height of the dry season. During the long, brutal dry season, flames sweeping across the Kalahari may be a sign of life. The tinder dry brush is often ignited by the fires of villagers. For days, Marshall and his party have searched the desert for the people and animals who abandoned the village of Khade because of a broken pump. For Marshall, there is the chance that the nearby tribesmen who started the fires have some knowledge of the Khade people.
The name of this place is
We found a tiny Bantu village which was called Zuichwaha, which means one elephant.
Ask him if he knows of any people that live further south, further out into this desert.
One man had heard of a group of people far out in the desert who were moving north.
Beyond the last settlement, they follow ancient game trails, hoping to find a trace of the Khade people. Late on a September afternoon, they find the people they have searched for, the people of Khade.
They told us that 4 months ago they had left Khade, moving north in the increasing heat of the dry season to this place where they had relatives. Since they had left home, they had had no water except for what they could get from roots and melons. I'd seen thirst before, but not like this. They distributed what water we could give them with manners and patience. There were 42 people, and I began to wonder how they really had survived. Their problem was complicated, for they wanted their animals to live also. How could anything have survived here so long without drinking? To find out how they had stayed alive, I had to learn everyone's name and how they were related. Kinship has always been the key to Bushman survival. A girl.
It's a girl.
Oh, I haven't got that one marked yet. That one there.
But,
The one with the goats. After learning people's names, you learn how households are related through marriage.
it's 12 fed wives.
The Khadi people were related through marriage to people living nearby, relatives bound by kinship to help them.
Tell me, these houses are being made because the rains may be coming.
The rains were late. People said they might not come at all, and they told me that all the melons had been picked.
Do the people have melons stored at that village where we went?
Without melons of their own, they depended on their relatives, who had few to give. There were barely enough melons for the people. There had never been any for the goats, who had lived for 4 months on what moisture they could get from the dried up leaves and twigs. There were melons for one animal, a horse named Vedia. Although she was owned by one man, my Piro, everyone watered her. On his horse, my Piro hunted for all the people. It had been a long time since they had eaten big game, because thirst had worn down the horse. The melons could only keep her alive.
Yes.
Gifts of melons could never have kept the people alive. Their lives depended, as they always had, on what women could gather, on their knowledge of many plants, on their eyes keen enough to see tiny vines, and on their thin, strong arms. For 99% of human history, all people were gatherers and hunters, living in small, flexible bands, depending on a vast and intimate knowledge of their environment. For it is never far away.
They say their goats are dying and their donkeys will die. And if they stay here, their children will also die and the old people will die of thirst. Because they stayed here for about 3 months without water since they left Kalahari.
They could go no farther. Nowhere would their animals be allowed to drink. Where do you want to go now?
They want to go back to Kalahari. They say they want to go to their forefathers' places, where their fathers died and were buried. Then they want to live in that places. It's their own places, Kalahari.
They had neither the money nor resources to fix the broken pump at the village of Kalahari. We said we'd try to get the parts and fix it. They accepted our promise without revealing emotion. Self-control is critical, an orchestra of bodies. Even their god and the spirits of the dead are attracted to good music, listening from the darkness beyond the fire. Underlying the gaiety, there is deep magic. For the dance is the way the people protect themselves from the dark forces within themselves and their land, from the evil of dissension, from thirst and starvation, from disease and death. The people of Kalahari dance the rain rhythm, the most ancient as it is the most important. For the scarcity of water is the ever-present theme which dominates their lives. It was the lack of water which drove them from their home, and it was the promise of water once again which gave them the hope of returning.
On a September morning, the children feel the thrill of anticipation in the camp. After 2 weeks, Marshall and Ledimo have returned from Kalahari. The pump has been fixed.
And we have to have enough water for our trucks and ourselves. So we're going to try to give share 2 of these a day.
If they stay waiting for the doubtful rains, donkeys and goats will continue to die, and people will be in danger. They will take their losses on the trek. They have decided to go home.
The few who owned donkeys rode, but most had to walk 120 miles through sand and thorns. From the beginning, the pace was determined not by the endurance of the people, but by the goats. From one shade tree to the next, they stampeded, desperate for some small oasis of shade. By midday, the heat had reached 120 degrees, and the animals and the people could go no farther. The death of their goats would mean the end of their new way of life, for goats enabled them to buy things they couldn't make themselves. They had become dependent on an outside world which had always rejected them. Bushmen had been despised, slaughtered like animals, their lands and waters taken over by Bantu and white alike. But if these people could reach Khadi and hold it, there would be a chance they could continue to exist as a people. As they moved ahead, everyone gathered roots along the way. And as the days passed and they got closer to home, they moved through country where the wild foods had not been gathered and where the game was plentiful. Now, for the first time in weeks, there was the hope of meat. For me, my Pierrot and his horse symbolized the great contrast between an existence they had always known and an emerging way of life. Now, with horse and dogs, the time and labor of the hunt is cut by days. The dogs had bayed the kudu within 20 minutes. But I remembered with what skill and patience we used to track the game. Killing so efficiently seemed to rob hunting of its symbolic quality, making it a simple act of subsistence, instead of a larger act of kinship, binding the people together. Still too little water, so many animals. We could water only those we depended on the most. Not all those who hunted could drink, but the horse was more than a means of hunting. She was a source of pride. Perhaps the successful hunt was a good omen. For the first time in months, there were thunderclouds stretching across the horizon. The day dawned chill and misty. The people felt confident. They knew that up ahead, rain had fallen. The long, brutal dry spell was broken. They would be able to travel faster and farther in the cool weather, strengthened by the fresh meat of the kudu. Instead of the 6 miles a day they had averaged in the beginning, they could travel perhaps 15. They were almost home. No longer must the goats be driven forward. They sensed that during the night, rain had fallen somewhere to the south. The water they finally found, near the place where they began, came too late for many of their animals. More than a fourth of their goats had died. In the final days of their journey, they wondered if they would ever again be forced to leave Khadi and set out into the desert. After 10 hard days of trudging through the Kalahari, the people of Khadi were home, stoical and weary. Later, there would be time to go to their huts, to unpack and rest. Their first concern lay a few hundred yards beyond the village. With nowhere left for themselves and their flocks but the central Kalahari, where the water is deep beneath the sand, the Khadi people were dependent for their future on an ancient engine and a 4-inch pipe. It seemed to me that now their real struggle was beginning. To hold their land, to keep the pump, to take their place in the larger economy of their country. They could give up and be scattered like so many before them. Or they could be together as a people and keep the values that had always sustained them. The children of Khadi still played the games their ancestors had for hundreds of generations, acquiring the essential values of participation basic to the life of their small society. Now the children of Khadi faced a different future. In 15 years, so much had changed. The future of many of the peoples I had known was no longer in their own hands. Others were scattered, losing the knowledge of the desert they needed to lead independent lives. And the Kalahari, too, was changing. Now the Kalahari is becoming cattle country. The Bushmen's last remaining water holes are being taken over by commercial ranches. It seems to me that the crucial question is, can any Bushman hold their hereditary land? Or are they destined to be like those I saw, landless, itinerant laborers herding other people's cattle?
Much has happened to the Bushman people in the last 15 years. In Botswana, a large community has developed at Khadi, where farming with livestock is encouraged. In Namibia, Southwest Africa, the government has planned to expropriate the last land belonging to the Bushman people for a game reserve, in which subsistence farming will be forbidden. If they can't farm, the people will die out from malnutrition and disease. Recently, the Namibian government has suspended the plan for the game reserve, but the threat remains.
A sweeping wilderness of sand and sun, space and sky stretches along the coast of southwestern Africa. It has been called a land God made in anger, an ageless land, the endless expanse. This place of wind-whipped sand and scant rain, this parched and rippled landscape is a Namib Desert. Seemingly barren, it is unique on our planet. For these sands are home to the largest, most varied community of animal life of any dunes on Earth. Almost everything that lives here has developed in some unusual way. At dawn, the nocturnal gecko burrows deep into the sand to escape the heat of day. The backflip spider spins a web of silk and sand to create its own shade. Through countless miracles of evolution, each of the desert species has adapted to the extremes. Facing the challenge of hostile elements, they have run the gauntlet of incalculable time and survived. It has been said that the name Namib means emptiness, but no one really knows. And the mute sands conceal the mysteries of its age, history, and origin. Throughout the world, the word desert has become almost synonymous with Sahara, the 3 million square miles of arid land that dominate the north of the African continent. But fringing the southwestern coast lies the relatively unknown and strangely unique strip of wilderness called the Namib, a coastal desert 1,300 miles long and 50 to 100 miles wide. Its thirsty sands have been worn and sculpted by a climate of uncompromising harshness. Here, through eons of evolutionary time, life has been tested under the most severe conditions, and surely, quietly, it has survived. For here, unlike most deserts, the dunes are often blanketed with dense fog. Gathering moisture from the fog, the rare welwitschia plant may live for 2,000 years. Throughout its long life, the welwitschia grows only a single pair of leaves. As it ages, these tough leathery leaves split and curl, fragmenting into the appearance of many. Wherever the mist settles, it leaves its legacy of moisture and life. For many creatures of the desert, the fog is their only source of moisture. The palmetto gecko drinks the water that collects on its own body. The sidewinder, too, gets moisture in this way. Life-sustaining fog rolls into the desert about 60 days a year, driven over the dunes by breezes from the sea. Warm air from the Atlantic passes over the cold Antarctic current, which runs along this coast, and the resulting drop in temperature creates the fog. But the offshore winds and chill seas that bring life to the desert have brought death to countless ships and seafarers. Their remains scatter the length of the skeleton coast. Unwary ships are claimed by the sea, swept ashore, abandoned, and reclaimed by the sands. Where shore gives way to desert, the dunes tower 500 feet in the air. They stretch for hundreds of miles along this desolate coast, sea and sand meeting in majestic confrontation. As the coast exacts its toll from those who venture on her seas, these drifting dunes have smothered man's creations on her shores. In 1908, diamonds were discovered in the sands of Coleman's Cove. The rush was on as fortune hunters converged here. Millions of carats of diamonds were mined in a frenzy of activity. By the late 1930s, the rich deposits were exhausted. There was nothing to keep man here. Now there is no sound except for the wind, no movement save that of the restless sands. Civilization was here, reaped its rewards, and moved on. Today, riches of another kind lure man to the Namib. It is the extraordinary life here that has drawn Dr. Michael Robinson from the deserts of America to Africa. Robinson is a zoologist. Reptiles are his specialty. There are some 45 species of lizards that live in the Namib. Like most reptiles, this sand lizard can only forage when its body is warm. Its feet are especially adapted to dissipate heat. To keep them from scorching on the hot sand, it lifts them alternately in the air. when it becomes too hot. For Mike Robinson, the Namib is a vast living laboratory where a whole community of creatures makes its home in the relative cool under the sand. Mike Robinson wants to know how these species compare with reptiles he has observed in other deserts. Robinson is seeking answers to some of the riddles of evolutionary relationships. He is one of a privileged group of scientists who have come to study this intricate ecosystem. A research institute was established in the heart of the Namib in 1963. Since then, more than 300 scientists from all over the globe have lived and worked here on a variety of projects. Built on the site of a deserted Hottentot village, the Namib Desert Research Institute also provides housing and laboratory facilities for a small permanent staff. The research center is accessible by a primitive dirt road that stretches across the wilderness. Mail and supplies are brought in once a week.
How are you? Very well, thanks. We have a good trip.
The research director of the Institute is Dr. Mary Seeley, a PhD from the University of California. She coordinates the work of the permanent staff and visiting scientists. It was Mary Seeley's interest in wild creatures in their natural surroundings that brought her to the Namib in 1967.
Okay, Kate, these are the ones from here.
Here, where the laboratory and the field are only steps apart, she can study animal life under what she finds to be nearly ideal conditions.
How many have we got? 7.
Dr. Seeley's current project involves a species of beetle found only in the dunes of the Namib. In the laboratory, she and an assistant painstakingly number the tiny animals for identification. These beetles have the remarkable ability to extract moisture from trenches they build on the dunes. They are collected and weighed, and the data is recorded. The beetles are then returned to the dunes where they were found. Amazingly, even in this vast expanse, it will be possible to relocate many of them later. Subsequent weighings will indicate how much these beetles utilize fog one part of the complex puzzle of survival in the dunes. There are more than 200 species of beetles that live here, and nowhere else on Earth. Finding its own niche in the dunes, utilizing sand, wind, and fog to its advantage, each has developed its own special behavior to master this demanding environment. These white-back beetles remain coupled even when they are not mating, behavior yet to be explained. The mating behavior of these black beetles is quite unusual. Three males pursue a much larger female. It seems to take all three to subdue the female for the mating to be successful. In this species, there are even more males moving even faster. Swept by the force of the wind, the sands shift constantly. Abruptly, they are checked at the Quiseb River. Dry most of the time, the river may flow only once a year, nurturing the oasis of greenery that threads across this harsh landscape. The Quiseb cuts the Namib in two, and the sand pours endlessly into the riverbed. The river is fed by rains that fall not here, but more than 100 miles inland. Even one day of flood a year, washing the sands toward the sea, is enough to keep the Namib forever divided. Soon after flooding, the waters disappear, the river dries. In its course, water holes remain, providing a precious resource for the wildlife. Two scientists in residence at the research center, Ron Tilson and his wife Janet, are studying the Quiseb environment and its relationship to the wildlife and the surrounding desert.
Up in this area, Janet.
The Tilsons spend much of their time in remote areas of the river, observing and analyzing its ecology.
Oh, look. Right underneath the acacia. See him right underneath that,
Steenbok, a kind of antelope, are residents here. The various animals seem to have territorial preferences, and experience has shown the Tilsons where to look for specific wildlife. Clip springers roam the rocky slopes. Troops of baboons wander the riverbed. Ron Tilson has found that the baboons play an important role in the life of this area, for they excavate drying water holes to tap underground sources. Thus, they provide water for many of the animals when it would not otherwise be available.
Oh, look, there they are up on the rocks there.
The Tilson's findings may someday help to explain how creatures, large and small, have adapted to this complex wilderness. North of the river, the oasis of the Quiseb gives way to the fragmented terrain of the gravel plains. And here, too, there is life. Somehow surviving the suffocating heat, endlessly wandering the plains in search of scant rains and grasses, these animals call upon their own special adaptations to endure. This ostrich has produced her brood in the middle of a vast plain with no vegetation in sight. For 6 weeks she has tended her eggs through the searing heat of day. On the alert for predators, she now protects her chicks on this harsh, dry landscape. Like the ostrich, the sand grouse must brood her young through the long, scorching day. To cope with the sweltering heat, she flutters her throat, creating a rapid exchange of air and thus cools her body. The chicks cannot yet fly, but must have water daily. The sand grouse have met this challenge to their survival in a most remarkable way. Each morning, the male parent flies to a distant water hole to drink. Because predators stalk these pools, most of the sand grouse remain only a few seconds. But males with young chicks stay longer and immerse their breast feathers. These feathers are marvelously designed to hold water so that it can be carried back to the young. The search for water may take them as far as 50 miles from the nest, a round trip of 100 miles a day. His feathers heavily laden with water, the male approaches his family, and instinctively, even the newborn chicks know immediately where to drink. shadeless sand, ground temperatures may reach 170 degrees Fahrenheit. But once a week, someone from the research center must drive across the dunes. Mary Seeley enjoys these solitary journeys. For her, this infinite landscape evokes questions of how these sands were formed and when. She ponders the idea that she may be in a place where man has not been for thousands of years, where modern man may never have been before. Nine weather stations located at various sites on the desert are maintained and monitored. Day and night throughout the year, instruments measure and record such data as temperature, humidity, and wind velocity to help establish long-range weather patterns. Information gathered from the field also has immediate practical applications.
17324 17324 00 900 00 900 02.
3 times a day, weather readings are radioed to the coast, providing statistics vital to aircraft and ship safety.
Baie dankie 279 vir je hulp. Goeienacht, oornight.
Rainfall is rare. Parts of the desert may go without rain for years. But when the rain does come, the effect is miraculous. Almost overnight, food is available, and suddenly, long-hidden creatures appear. The blue weevils haven't been seen here since the last rain. Their eggs or larvae may lie buried in the sand for years, but with the rains, they emerge. Within a few weeks, they will eat abundantly, mate, lay their eggs, and die. To discourage predators, the blue weevil has only this somewhat feeble defense. For those with no defense, there are ways of hiding in the desert. Still and stone-like, these are toad grasshoppers. They too appear only when it rains. The grassy areas are invaded by finchlarks. These nomadic birds seek out the seeds and insects that appear after the rains. They nest against tufts of grass to give shade to their young. The grasses soon ripen and wither. Then the wind lifts them, tosses and distributes them over hundreds of miles across the desert. Tiny fragments of the plant material and grass seeds collect on the dune faces, away from the wind. Here, the cycle of life in the Namib begins. For these humble bits of plants are food for the desert's smallest inhabitants. But even when food is plentiful, the savage struggle for life continues. The sun spider will eat at least one grasshopper a day during the brief season of plenty. Despite its name, it is not a true spider. It cannot spin silk and has no poison glands. But it is equipped with enormous jaws. First severing the head of its victim, it then saws and bites its way through the body until nothing remains. In the endless round of predation, a female wasp has found the burrow of a trapdoor spider. She will move incredible amounts of sand to get to her prey. As its first defense, the spider has dug its burrow on the slope of a dune face, so as fast as the wasp digs, the sand slides back into the hole. Often the wasp, which may have been searching for days, simply gives up. But this time, the spider is uncovered. It has powerful jaws, the wasp a sting. The outcome is by no means certain. In addition, this spider has developed a most extraordinary method of escape. It forms its legs into a circle and cartwheels down the dune. The wasp does not attempt to kill the spider, but to paralyze it with a sting, so that its body can provide food for her young. She drinks fluid from the spider's jaws. This may be to refresh herself, or perhaps to confirm that the spider is paralyzed. Now she buries her prey temporarily to protect it from the sun and from other predators. How she finds it again is a mystery, but she always does. The wasp will now spend nearly an hour digging her nesting burrow, which will be about 12 inches deep. When it's complete, she will bring the spider here and lay a single egg on its body. A young wasp will hatch and begin to feed on the living body of the spider. This chameleon sheds its skin about every 6 weeks. It normally lives on the ground, but climbs into a spiny bush to scrape off the wisps and tatters of its discarded outer skin. The daily search for food begins. The only snake which has adapted to life in the dunes is the sidewinding adder. This undulating motion enables it to move efficiently over the loose sand. Its hunting technique has also been perfected to suit conditions in the dunes. Unlike most other snakes, the adder's eyes are in the top of its head. The venom works quickly. After carefully realigning its jaws, the snake will use its tongue to follow the scent of the dying lizard. In the ageless pattern of life and death, predator and prey, There are creatures which feed upon snakes. The snake eagle hunts on the wing. Its most common prey is the whip snake, which it can detect from a height of 1,000 feet. Nests are built in the scattered trees of the gravel plains, and both parents hunt for their chick. It would be impossible for the parent bird to contain a snake of this size in its craw. The snake is carried whole in the stomach of the parent and now goes straight into the stomach of the chick. The chick has a voracious appetite. In the next few hours, it will eat 2 or 3 large snakes. Unlike other birds of prey, it will regurgitate nothing. Scales, bones, everything is digested. On these sands, the wonders of creation and adaptation appear daily in myriad ways. In the late afternoon, a sidewinder gives birth. At night, the desert sounds with a chorus of barking geckos, males inviting females into their burrows and warning other males to stay away. Now, many of the desert's most unusual creatures can be observed. For this man, night is a favorite time on the desert. He speaks of incalculable horizons, the quiet, the experience of communing with wild things. A native of South Africa, Dr. David Hughes is both a zoologist and a photographer. He has spent months in the Namib, observing and filming. David Hughes is drawn here by what he calls the joyous feeling of being close to wildlife and observing its natural behavior. He knows that many animals which avoid the heat of day completely surface now after the sun has set. The legless lizard forages for insects just below the surface of the sand. It is almost blind and probably depends upon its sense of smell to locate prey. palmetto gecko can see particularly well at night, and the webbed feet, so effective for burrowing, help the gecko to move silently in search of its prey. But the gecko, too, must be on the alert for predators. And this is one of the most voracious of all. The golden mole. There is no animal quite like it anywhere else on Earth. It manages to live under the surface without a burrow, breathing the air trapped between the particles of sand. Blind, but equipped with a well-developed sense of smell and an extraordinary ability to detect the most minute vibrations, the golden mole seems to swim like a tiny shark in a sea of sand, surfacing close to its victims and pulling them under to be devoured. It hunts beetles, spiders, termites, and the legless lizard. The gerbil is one of the few mammals in the dunes. Living in family burrows, it emerges only at night. With a tremendous appetite for insects and grasses, it flourishes when they are plentiful. A large white lady spider digs a burrow and lines its interior with her silk. Then, skillfully matting together silk and sand, she makes a trapdoor to conceal the burrow. She will lie in wait, poised upside down just under the trapdoor, responding to the slightest vibration on the surface. Not every foray is successful. A struggle might damage the white lady's burrow, so she waits for her prey to be still before dragging it under the sand. The scientists who work in the Namib have, like the wildlife, adapted to the rhythms and demands of the desert. Mary Seeley says perhaps she was pre-adapted to life here. She enjoys being alone and savors the opportunity to focus on her work. For the Namib offers challenges more rewarding than the comforts of a conventional life. She says when she first saw it, this desert was a biological system almost unexplored, full of animals that didn't even have names. Mary Seeley cannot imagine herself doing any other sort of work or living anyplace else. In In the early morning hours, fog rolls in from the sea to juxtapose itself on the dryness of the desert, and the Namib turns damp and cold. The humidity reaches 100%, and mists settle on the research station. Now the dunes will be alive with creatures gathering the life-giving moisture. For Mary Seeley, the excitement of research is there on the dunes. She says that is where the discoveries are made. The desert does not give up its secrets easily. Its harsh ways require time, patience, and imagination from those who would pierce its mysteries. In every living thing, in every grain of sand, there are lessons to be learned that may help us to understand our universe. No one knows how long it has taken the creatures of the Namib to adapt to this demanding environment. It may have been tens of thousands, perhaps millions of years. Of all the adaptations, the strangest may be that of this beetle. Normally, it is active after the sun has warmed the dunes. But as fog descends on the desert, the beetle emerges from the sand and struggles to the crest of a dune. Facing into the moisture-laden breeze, it tilts its body into the air. As the droplets of water trickle down to its mouth, it drinks and survives. For those born to it, the Namib is a sheltering desert. In this sweeping wilderness, sun, fog, and sand fuse to create countless habitats, and the dunes are vibrant with life. That is the miracle and the mystery that has long lain hidden in the living sands of Namib.